should we welcome everybody first?
Oh yeah, that'll probably be a good idea. Welcome to our 10th Friendaversary episode extravaganza. I'm Tempest, this is GVizzle. And thank you for joining us on our journey for the last 10 hours of epic podcastness.
Shenanigans and tomfoolery.
And meanderings of epic proportions.
Today, we are continuing our theme of psychological questions. And the first question I have for you, sir, these are, let's let everyone playing along at home know that these are 9 psychological questions that will help you read anyone. First question. Would you open an envelope that has the date of your death inside?
Yeah.
Well, that was quick. Why?
Curiosity. And also, in some ways, I think it'd be quite cool to know when you're going to die, in that you know exactly how much time you got left, and you know exactly how much you need to make the most of it, you know?
That's fair. Would you want to also know the means of?
That's a trickier one, because if it's really painful, I'm just going to be terrified for however many days or weeks or years it is.
But also with would you try to prevent it? Because I don't think fate, period. But if you knew that you were going to die, let's say in 6 years from now, I'm not going to lie that it didn't happen. Like if you knew the date was like June 3rd, 2043, let's go even further up. If you knew that date, would you take any precautions leading up to that date? This is a multi-part question. Would you I shouldn't have had a carbonated beverage. Would you take precautions leading up to that date? Would you be extra paranoid on that date, or maybe stay home on that date? Or would you think 43, that's 20 years from now, I'm going to hoot and holler it up because that's the death date, not realizing that your actions may change that? Because it would presumably be the date of your death based on if you were to continue on the way you were. But if you're like, oh, it's in 30 years, I'm going to smoke some crack.
That'd be nice. I'd love some crack.
So I'm guessing your date would be pretty quick.
I've never had crack. I just to get that out there now.
Because it's not, the date of your death is not set in stone date. Anything could change that.
But it depends on the system that they've got in play. I mean, this could be another one of my irritating answers, but it depends on the system they've got and how foolproof it is. And so if you know that they get this right 99.99% of the time, then you know that, okay, no matter what I do, I'm going to die on that day. Or if you're the only person that you know of that's ever been given this letter, then you have to have some degree of skepticism.
But I think it would be whatever you do.
Yeah.
Because there are some, you're not immortal to that date. So if it was 30 years from now, it's not like you can jump off a building and be like, see you in 30 years, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Your actions could still change that date. So it may not be this, it would be, the way I read it anyway, or I interpret it, is that it is the date of your death, all things moving on, progressing as you normally do. Like if you read that and all of a sudden decided to go bungee jumping with a shady rope, then that could change some things. So anything could impact that date. You never know. Like if it says next week, and then maybe the next week you don't go anywhere, you don't do anything, and then whatever because you knew you were able to avoid it.
Yeah. And I think it does depend on the system that it's come from. And I think that I would probably use it more if I didn't know if it was for certain or not. If I'm taking it from your perspective of how you're perceiving it here, I would probably use it more as a guide to know, okay, am I living my life properly? And if this date is surprisingly soon, either some freak accident's going to happen or some freak illness, or I've not been living my life as well as I thought I was.
That's true. It could be eye-opening. It could be like one of
Yeah.
those game-changing experiences. That's true.
And I just think that where not to risk getting too heavy, but like being addicted to morphine for a few years and having the back problems, like with the extra pain and all that stuff, all of these things shorten your life. You lose life years at the end based on stuff like that, like aggregated out to the whole population. We don't know on an individual level, but people in my position, we tend to die sooner, which is one of the reasons why I tried to give up my morphine, because I don't want to die soon. I like living.
I was a smoker. I was smoked for 20 years. That didn't do me any favors. Like
exactly. And I just think that, yeah, and I think that looking at it from your perspective is a lot more positive, because in both those situations, you and I both know
that's our trend, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That like if I'd carried, like if either of us had carried on the way we were, then we're not going to be able to do that many podcast episodes.
That's true. It's like I think this is the premise of it, because I've not seen the entire movie, but there was a Queen Latifah movie, I think it was called Last Holiday or something, where she gets these negative medical results. So she thinks she's dying. So she blows all of her life savings and goes on this like massive holiday to like, because she's got no one to leave the money to. So she just blows it all and then realizes the test was the wrong person. She's actually not going to die, but her life has changed forevermore. But like, I wonder if that would make you completely more like we try to pay off our mortgage and not get into a ton of debt and save for retirement because we expect there to be a retirement. But if I opened this envelope and it was like 15 years from now, I would be like, fuck saving. I'm just gonna blow it. Like it could lead to a lot of irresponsibility.
True.
To like, if you just knew and didn't try to change it, just took it as like, that's the date, so that's the date.
I think you're right there, because it could lead to a very carpe diem attitude, which is not adaptive, and it's gonna cause problems for the people around you.
Yeah, like the whole like live every day as if it's your last, but it's like, but it's probably not. So plan ahead.
Exactly.
I worked with a guy once who, so his parents were always very, very frugal, and they didn't get new cars, they didn't take vacations, they didn't spend any money on themselves because they saved everything they could for when they retired. That was like their big, when they retire, then they're going to get to travel and get the cars, get all that stuff. And then 2 years after retirement, his dad passed away. So they never got to enjoy the spoils of all their hard work. His wife's parents, on the other hand, they were the complete opposite. They were getting new cars, they were taking vacations, and they were like, fuck it, we'll worry about later. And then they were in their 70s still working. Like they were working at Walmart and other like shitty jobs outside, not shitty jobs, but like they retired from careers and then had to take on these other minimum wage paying jobs because they blew it all going up front. So I think if you knew that steadfastly that what that date was, then you would fall into one of those camps. Because if you knew you were going to live to be 100, then you'd be like, fuck, I gotta. But if it was going to be like 43, you'd be like, make it rain.
Yeah, exactly. Most of you will live to older age, and so you do need to save. And then I think there's got to be a balance there of trying to live within your means, but also spending a bit of money and having fun, while at the same time trying to make your retirements comfortable. Yeah,
like we are saving for our retirement, but then it's not like we're blowing money right, left, and center, but we take our we're big campers, right? We have the dogs. We don't want to house the dogs anywhere because we're suckers for it. I'm a sucker for them. So we do like camping trips and like other things. So we don't deprive ourselves to the point of being miserly because of what's going to happen when we're 65. Like I have 47-year-old knees and he's got a bad back, right? Like we're we're not in peak physical condition now. I don't think 20 more years is going to improve that situation. And now you've got a fucked up toe. So now I got a fucked up toe back in here. How does evolution not put a turtle-like shell around those bitches? Here's what the reason they tell you to ask this question. This is what you can learn from somebody. With the answer to this question, you might understand a person's level of fatalism and their attitude to life in general. But they don't give you any like what things mean. No. Next question.
I'll get you a question now. We'll take it in turns. I found a good one. So,
okay, go.
Okay, who would you choose as a dinner guest if you can invite anybody?
Living or dead?
It doesn't specify. Any you want?
Dinner guest. Any one person?
Yes.
I don't know. Because if it's like someone that I've looked up to, I wouldn't want to risk tarnishing that.
Yeah.
This is my time to be negative, right? It's like Bill Murray. Bill Murray was, I think he was just like fired from a show or a movie he was working on because of like assault allegations. And it's like, fucking Bill, like fucking Bill. Like, I didn't want to know that about you. I didn't want you to be that person. So I wouldn't want to like Dolly Parton. She will never disappoint. There's my answer. Dolly Parton is a fucking gem. She is a gem. Yeah.
She does a good job of...
I don't even like country music, but I love Dolly Parton.
She does a good job of presenting herself like that. So, you know, you never know.
Hopefully it's legit and she's not like kicking puppies. She's actually, so the audiobook I'm listening to now, she co-wrote with James Patterson, who does like mystery novels.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm so glad I'm listening to it because it's a full cast production and she plays, like she's in it. She's not playing herself, but she's in it. So like getting to hear her voice, it's like Dolly. So that's why she's top of mind. I think Dolly Parton would be, well, I don't know what we would have to talk about. Like probably not. Okay, so that's a bad answer because I have probably nothing in common with Dolly Parton.
But you could just sit there and just gaze at each other and just know that she's that she's a decent person.
I don't know. I think I would want it to be, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. Because then it's also like, if it's from any time and any, like if I could take like my 18-year-old self to impart some like, would I want that conversation? Would 18-year-old me even listen? Probably not. Would I want to talk to like my 20-year-old mom at the time? Like there's so many different avenues of like, do I want to change things or do I want to impart some wisdom or do I want to do that? Or do I just want to be starstruck and sit across the table from
just gazing?
Yeah, just like, maybe some, I don't know. It's such a difficult question. It shouldn't be a difficult question, but it's really fucking difficult.
It sent you into a spiral.
I did, because I've got like everything. Like, do I want to be like, I don't know.
This is how my mind works every day. Welcome.
It's exhausting. I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would really depend on if there were any potential outcomes of that. Like if it could change things, then I would maybe want to talk to like a younger me or younger somebody else. If it's just like you have 2-hour meal with somebody to ask some questions or do whatever, then do I want to like learn some things from somebody who's really cool? Do I want to pick someone's brain about something? Like, do I want to sit across the table from like Neil Gaiman or Christopher Moore and be like, where do you get your inspiration? Where do you get your ideas from? Or do I just want to stare at Tom Hardy or Chris Evans for 2 hours and be like, hi? It would really depend. I have no idea.
Deep breaths.
I could do a whole hour about this one topic.
What would if you had dinner with your younger self of whatever age, what would your younger self say to you, do you think?
I started smoking when I was really young. So let's say I'm 18-year-old me, I would say quit smoking now.
No. What would she say to you?
Oh, 18-year-old me say to 47-year-old me? Oh, go fuck yourself, old lady. Like 18-year-old me might show up. Like if 18-year-old me just like beamed in Star Trek style into this house and looked around, they'd probably like, you know what, you're doing all right, but you could probably stand to vacuum more often because there's dog hair everywhere. But but you're doing all right. So I think I'd be pleased with where I ended up.
Yeah, I reckon.
What about you?
Probably just baffled that I turned into the person that I did. Like, what? You're not in prison or a psychiatric hospital? How the fuck did that happen?
So I think we'd both be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Would you be friends with yourself?
Oh, it's hard to answer because if I said yes, I'd be really narcissistic.
Not really.
But I don't know. I kind of am friends with myself. I'm friends with you.
So do you want to know why? What the benefit of this is?
Go on.
Here, you can figure out a person's self-esteem, their strengths and weaknesses, and how interesting they are.
Really? Interesting. Because the thing is like, we might, like, well, we are the same person, but we know different things.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, like, would I just be having the same conversations with myself?
That's really interesting point. I never thought of it from that perspective, that you wouldn't be like every time a controversial topic came up, you'd always agree. Like, what do you think of that? Yeah, me too. Fucking high five. Really?
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, if you wouldn't want to be friends with yourself, doesn't that also say something? Like if you were like, no, bitch, then is it like perhaps lend to some self-reflection on why wouldn't I want to be friends with me?
Yeah, I guess then I'd probably answer it as, in principle, I'd be friends with myself because I like who I am now. Me 20 years ago, I wouldn't have wanted to be friends with, not for any horrible, deep reason, just because I was a bit annoying. And like, I'm annoying now, but in a different way.
Yeah, but you were a teenager then. Being
Exactly.
annoying is kind of your job as a teenager.
Exactly. And that's part of growing up. And then I think it's a mark of like, have you grown up? Have you matured? Have you started to integrate your personality? And then if you've kind of done all of that, then you should want to be friends with yourself.
I agree. And it may be you have different friends for different reasons, right? Like there's friends that I go out with if I just want to have a really good laugh and not have to think about anything. There's other friends that I would go out with if I wanted to like work through some stuff and like talk things out and kind of get deep. So you'd have that terrible cliche, friends for a reason, friends for a season, and friends for a lifetime. I think I'd be, someone I would go out and drink with and have a laugh with.
Yeah. That sounds like what you just said sounds like the platonic version of marry, fuck, kill. Friends for a reason, friends for a season.
Friends for a lifetime. Live, love, laugh.
Okay, then. Do you believe in nature or nurture?
I believe in a combination of the two. Yes. I don't think one overrides the other.
You passed the test. Well done.
The end. Yeah, I believe it's a combination of the two. I think there's things that you were born with, but then it's what do you do with those things? Yeah.
And I had one of my modules on my undergrad, my supervisor, she was running the unit, and it was like a private joke to herself that she called it the positive self, because all the positive psychology stuff is a load of bullshit. And also positivity, too much of it can be a bad thing. And also there's no such thing as yourself. Like what you are is a combination of all of the pressures that have acted on you throughout your life, including your genetics. And then all of that creates you. And then so if somebody else had had all the exact same experiences and genes and everything that you did, they'd be a complete copy of you in every way.
Well, it's like siblings, right? Like you all grew up in the same, like if you're siblings, you all grew up in the same household, but you all develop different personalities and different ways of coping with things. And like my brother, sister, and I are all good examples of that. I may be different because I'm so much younger, like they were a year apart, so they were dealing with the same thing at the same time. Whereas being the younger one, I was different, but we all have very different personalities.
And also, even with them just being a year apart, but even just being the first and second child, or
male,
being
female,
yeah.
If you could see a measuring scale above people's heads, what would you want the scale to measure? Their status in society, their level of happiness, their wealth, etc. Dealer's choice. What would you want it to measure?
Nothing, because it's none of my fucking business.
Right on. With the answer to this question, you will be able to understand a person's values and priorities.
Well,
So you value privacy.
apparently so. And also people's right to be who they are without my interference.
Exactly.
I might be a libertarian, perhaps.
It's a world of self-discovery today.
Yeah. Describe your perfect day.
Bark free, waking up on my own without any alarm, enjoying a breakfast served to me by someone else that I didn't have to make, taking the dogs out for a nice walk. If I could walk them together, that would be ideal, through a nature hike or path or whatever. Birds are singing, wind is blowing, sun is shining. Fun. Some quiet time to have a little me time, a little spot of lunch. It's like, it's not a complicated day. It's just kind of like spending time with doing things I enjoy with people I enjoy, and also having a bit of me time because I enjoy me as well. And just not having to worry about bills being paid, things that need to be cleaned, chores that need to be done, any of that stuff. Just a worry-free, relaxing, do what I want when I want, regardless of what that is, kind of day.
So, follow-up questions.
Oh, okay.
In your me time, what kind of things do you imagine that to be like? Because I know we've covered this in some of our other episodes.
My me time can take any number. My me time is really just time alone to do whatever I want. Whether that means, like yesterday, the hockey game was on, so I gave my husband the living room. I came upstairs, and in my me time, I gave myself a little manicure. I have a little foot bath. I gave myself a foot bath and just kind of like did a little bit of pampering. Sometimes it's just lying in the backyard in my recliner, listening to an audiobook or reading an actual book with my eyes. It could be engaging in a craft, doing a different hobby, clean, like it could be anything that strikes my fancy at that time.
Excellent. And do you have like a favorite breakfast that you would just devour in a second?
If I go out for breakfast, I will usually get like eggs benedict, because it's not something I would make for myself. Because I mean, like there's a couple times where I'm like, oh, I want to make dinner simple, so we'll have breakfast for dinner. So we'll do like bacon, eggs, hash browns, toast. But that's a fuck ton of work. Like it sounds so easy, but it's not. Trying to time everything, like making breakfast is hard. I also do love pancakes, but if I am going to be served a breakfast, I would like a nice hot cup of coffee, perhaps a mimosa, start the day off with some booze, why not? Excellent. And then eggs benedict, because I don't make it for myself. I like to indulge in that when I go out for breakfast.
And then your lunch then, what do you like to have at lunch if you were being treated?
My day-to-day lunch is usually leftovers, so not leftovers.
Yeah.
Lunch is kind of easy. I could go for like a really nice kind of bowl or salad type of thing. I'm a fan of sandwiches also. Like I'm not fussed about that. I'm easy when it comes to that.
At least something's easy, Jesus. Eggs benedict, alone time. Such high maintenance. Oh my God.
Only culinarily. Everything else, I'm easy. If I had to make it myself, I would just have a bowl of Cheerios and call it a fucking day.
Oh my God, you're like the neediest friend I've ever had in my life. Oh my God.
How you put up with me?
I don't either, honestly.
Patience of a saint. Patience of a saint.
Yeah, I have to rethink all of this, I think.
Welcome to our 10th and final episode, everybody.
Yeah.
Next question. No. Maybe.
What was it?
if I'm going to ask it, I've
Okay.
decided to come back to it. If women and men lived on two different planets, what would happen to both of these planets?
Considering we don't travel between planets right now, we probably die out
Correct.
very quickly.
That is correct.
Uh,
Humans.
and I think if politics is anything to go by, which it probably isn't a very good barometer for how society actually works, but it would be the same thing on both planets.
Yeah, it'd be a shit show either way.
Yeah, within groups and out groups, that if they don't have something to rally against or whatever, then it starts eating itself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh.
So here, this is why they ask. Here you can understand whether this person is inclined to stereotypical thinking or how logical they are.
Oh,
And
okay.
the fact that your first response was like, in a generation we'd all be dead, that's logical.
Yeah.
That's 1,000% logic.
Fucking brilliant. Oh man. Well, I got quite a deep one this time.
Oh,
These questions are quite good. But what does it mean to love someone?
romantic love or platonic love or familial love, friendship love? What kind of love?
Exactly. That's
I think in any instance of love, it would be caring about the person's well-being and having them in mind. Like my husband and I, when we make decisions, even if they're decisions that only affect one of us, we consider how they're going to impact the other because we're a unit that way, right? But that's love. Caring about, yeah, I think just caring about somebody's well-being is what love is about. Just giving a shit, wanting to check in on people, make sure they're okay, being able to offer support, assistance, advice, whatever that would be. Being there for someone would mean that you love that person regardless of the type of love, whether it's familial, platonic, romantic. It's just giving a shit and thinking about the other person and hoping they're okay.
yeah. I think it's being willing to step in and do something that's a detriment to yourself or could be a detriment to yourself, and you're willing to pay that price for that other person.
It's a nice way to look at it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I was, would I take a bullet for my husband? I'd ask him why people are shooting at him first, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, bullet to the head, maybe not. To the leg, okay.
Because in that case as well, like it's all kind of related to your self-esteem and what that other person's role is in society and all that other stuff. Yeah.
And I think it's going to be so cheesy and hokey, but when I think of, I don't think love is being completely selfless and putting, making sure that you're doing a detriment. Like you said, it's about self-esteem, right? I think one of the most important people everyone should learn to love is themselves. And if like you said 20 years ago you wouldn't want to be friends with yourself, but you were happy with who you are now because you worked hard to be that person, so you should celebrate who you've become and who you've worked hard to be. And so I think that self-love is that I'm also wanting to make sure that my well-being is taken care of and that I'm engaging in self-care and doing what's best for me. And if that sometimes means having to let go of someone you love because it's a detriment to you, then I think it's the whole concept of selfishness and selflessness is shenanigans is what,
Yes.
is what it is.
Yeah.
Because, and it's, I think you have to, wanting to do what's best for yourself and hope that other people do what's best for them and then support what's best for them. And it's a lack of malice or jealousy or any of that other stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the whole like doing what's best for yourself and all that, like I'm quite biased to that right now. I'm gonna cut that bit out, but like I do very much like I completely agree with that right now, but that's probably my mindset as well.
But I think it has to be everyone. I don't think we should cut that out. I think it has to be everyone's mindset, because if you can't take care of yourself, you're not in a position to take care of other people. If you can't truly love yourself, you're not, are you really loving somebody else, or are you just bringing them into your life because of how they make you feel or what they do for you. Like, I think you need to be as complete a person as possible. And it's a journey. And I'm not saying everybody is. I'm not saying I am. I've got shit to work on. But it's just being either happy with who you are or knowing what you need to do to get to that place where you're happy is the I think the best thing people can do for themselves, is recognizing that I'm not perfect. I'm not infallible. I have issues and I have problems, but I'm going to work on those, and they're mine to work on, not mine to lay blame on someone else for my issues. Because I think there's generally often a lack of accountability.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's easy to blame where you are on where you grew up and what your circumstances were. And they're a part of it. Absolutely. But there's also some sort of, you can't just keep blaming or using that as a reason versus an excuse.
Totally. I completely agree with that. One of the best things somebody ever said to me once, I mean, this was years and years ago. One of my mates said to me, like, 'cause I can't remember what happened. I honestly can't remember the context. And then she said, yeah, but like, your mother's in your past, you can't keep using that as a reason for the way that you are and the way that you act. So she's like, you gotta grow out of it. Like, she's like, I can't say it in a different way. You just got to grow out of it.
It's true. If your partner, the reason I'm asking this question is because of one word that has been included in this question is why I'm asking.
Sure.
Let's see if you can figure out which word it is. If your partner never finds out that you accidentally cheated on them, would you tell them about it?
Accidentally.
That's the word.
It would not be an accident. Like,
how does that happen?
Yeah. I mean, the only time I can think of it where it is legit an accident is depending on what you consider as cheating. And I think that, so say if you're like out in a club or something and you're drinking and then you're getting on well with somebody, but you're both drunk, sometimes you just end up kissing each other and you're like, whoa, how did that happen? And like, it literally just comes out of nowhere.
Okay, that's fair.
But to go further than that requires intent.
Yeah, like, you don't accidentally put your penis in someone's vagina.
Exactly. Yeah.
Would you tell them about, so let's go with your scenario, drunk kissing in a bar. Would you tell them about it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I don't know why I would. Really, I don't think. I just think that it's something that you should tell your partner.
I agree, because I mean, it's not like any good is going to come out of it, right? Like, they're not going to be like, they're not going to be like super okay with it.
No.
But it just feels like, yeah, I'm with you. Like, you'd have to deal with the consequences of the actions of your actions. And that's,
because for me, it's like you allowed yourself to get into the situation where you were drunk enough to do something like that. You know,
and then conversely, would you want to know?
Because of how I view cheating and why women tend to cheat. Oh man, it would depend on the
But it's the same scenario, right? Like, drunk in a bar, got swept up in the moment. Like, it's not a forethought of, you know, there's something lacking in my relationship. It's just like, we got swept up in this moment.
Yeah, I'd like to know. Just like, I mean, kind of a laugh about it, I think. Like, oh my god, what the fuck did you do, kind of thing. Like, if it was literally that, like the situation we just described, I think I would find it hilarious. And like, the whole situation would be amusing to me, because it's like, you know, I wouldn't be in a long-term relationship with somebody that I think would normally do that. So it's like, how did you possibly get yourself into that situation?
Very progressive way to look at it. The reason they say what you can learn from people by asking this is the answer indicates a person's moral standards and their attitude towards other people.
Oh, interesting.
Fade to black.